Hi everyone, I am Ahana.
And I am CC Celine.
Welcome back to another informative episode, because it's not a Wednesday episode because we're posting it on Friday. Because we only post 2 episodes a week.
Oh, right.
Anyway.
It is a Wednesday episode technically, but it's not. Sorry.
Anyway, welcome back to another Wednesday or informative topic. Today we're going to be talking about something.
It's not really a social issue.
It
Well,
is a social
I
issue.
kind of is.
But it's something I am very passionate about. Menstruation. Periods.
Hey, she's
Blood
very
bleeding
passionate.
out of you.
You're passionate about blood. That's good to know. I'll keep that in mind.
No,
All right.
but all jokes aside, this is actually a really deep topic.
It
There's
is.
so many layers
and I think
to
there
it.
are a lot of stigmas around it, and a lot of girls are afraid of it, or think it's a bad thing, or are embarrassed of it.
But we're here to tell you, no.
I, for one, was terrified at
Me
first.
too.
But you get used to it. It's just a normal part of life for women.
Anyway.
And it's, yeah.
Let's start off. So, what is menstruation, Celine?
So menstruation or period is normal vaginal, is that how you pronounce it?
Vaginal, yeah.
Bleeding that occurs as part of a woman's monthly cycle. So every month your body prepares for pregnancy, right? So if no pregnancy occurs, the uterus or womb sheds its lining. So the menstrual blood is partly blood and partly tissue from inside the uterus.
Basically, that complicated definition, what it means is that every month your stomach is preparing to hold a baby because babies grow in your uterus. And in order to support the baby, it has tissues of mucus, blood, and it's tissue. And it uses that so when the baby, if the baby grows, it is shielded properly and it doesn't get harmed. But if you aren't pregnant, there is no baby to grow in it, so it just sheds all its lining, which results in your period.
Yeah, and the average age for most girls to get their period is 12 years old or anywhere between the age of 10 and 15.
Yeah.
I got mine. When did you get yours?
I think I got mine right when I was 12.
Because wait, no. Didn't we get it at the same time?
Yeah, I got it before I turned 13.
Oh, well, I got it right after I turned 13 because I'm older.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we got it at basically almost the same time. Mine was 2 months later.
Mine was the day before school.
Mine was 3 days after my birthday.
Mine was the day before school. It's insane. We'll go into our stories soon, but first let's just, before we start off with our stories, periods look different for every single person.
Yeah.
So what we say is not going to be your story.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're different for everyone.
Yeah, everyone, some people's could last 2 days, some people's could last a week. Some people could have a lot of pain, some people could have no pain.
Some people could have a huge flow, that means you have a lot of blood. Some people could have a little bit. Some people could have different colors than other people, different shades of blood.
Yeah, some person could have to wear an overnight pad, some person could just wear a liner and be okay. It just depends.
It really depends.
And it depends at the point in your cycle, because usually at the end, it's less severe.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too. But at any given time, right now, 800 million women and youth worldwide are menstruating.
Wow.
So in 2 seconds, 800 million women and youth will be menstruating. In 10 days, 800 women and youth will be menstruating.
Right now, at this exact second.
Yeah. And, the total amount of people who have their period is larger. But it's just saying at this moment
because it
right
happens
now.
every month.
Yeah.
Right.
So periods have, they start at the beginning. It's normally light at the beginning. You normally get cramping at the beginning. Towards the middle, it's super heavy. And the cramping starts to go away. And then at the end, it slowly dies out. So
I never get cramps.
I get such bad cramping. Oh my god, my phone's being...
Her phone is at 20%.
I get such bad cramping.
Really?
It's awful.
Okay, I really don't. I got them once. So I'm lucky.
Anyway.
But what products do you prefer? Preferable?
I use pads and that's it.
Me too. I've never used a tampon in my life and I don't plan on it, nor do I want to.
They're scary, dude.
Everyone says that though. But I mean, it's probably not that scary. I mean, so many people use them.
It really depends on you. People like different types of things.
I think pads would be more comfortable. I mean, I've never used a tampon, but I'm just trying to imagine.
I have a friend who uses a tampon, and she says that she feels nothing, and it's way better than pads because it's more functional.
Oh, really?
So it depends on the person. But there's also things like cups, discs, where you just stick them up your vagina, and it collects the blood in the disc. you can have underwear, which is basically like a pad, but it's like built in to your underwear.
I've used those before.
Yeah.
I use those sometimes with a pad because mine can be really heavy.
Yeah, and those can be good for people who like don't want to spend a lot of money, because I think it's just an investment of like $50.
Yeah, you can reuse it. Whereas pads, you don't want to reuse those. Yeah.
And we'll get into that like in the second half about like reusable stuff.
Yeah.
But cups are also reusable. Discs are semi-reusable. I think it depends on what type of disc you have.
Yeah.
Another way you can like kind of control your period is using birth control.
Yeah, so birth control is like a pill. I think it kind of, like if you're on birth control, you can't get pregnant, right?
Yes.
So then it also regulates your periods, or I think in some cases, can it like get rid of your period?
Yeah, actually,
so
I've heard of people that have such bad period pain and such a worse flow that their doctor prescribed them birth control just so that their period is normal, or that I've actually met people that skip their period completely every month.
Yeah.
And what it does is it basically like it's like hormones kind of, and it just makes your system sort of like flip around. So.
Yeah, and for advice about like sanitation and stuff, I would say carry pads around like to school.
Yeah.
Like carry a couple around and carry different sizes. Like take a liner or like a thicker one, just in case, because you never know. Definitely carry a change of clothes, like a change of pants.
I also recommend
underwear.
carrying like sanitary wipes. You can find like natural ones that don't have any chemicals. At like Whole Foods or Target or whatever. And we also know that people don't have access to proper sanitation in different countries, which we'll talk about in the second half.
We'll talk about that in the second half, like how poverty affects like your period and your access to materials.
Yeah.
So, I would say just obviously like wash your hands after you like change out. Like,
yeah, and also
I think that's a
there's
given.
actually soaps you can get that are like for your period to wash, and definitely rinse it.
And change your pad. Like I would say, well, it depends on your situation. You know, if you're in school and you can't change it, I would say just change it like when you get home.
Yeah.
Or change it when there's like enough blood that it's like you.
At a minimum, I'd say change it every 8 hours during the day.
And then tampons, I forget, but you have to change them like
8 hours, I'm pretty sure.
I think. Yeah.
Because if you don't change out your tampons, you can actually go into this thing called TSS.
I heard that. Can't you die from that, right?
Yes,
like in rare cases.
It's a shock syndrome where it's basically like it's a bacterial infection since it's in there for more than like 4 days, I think. You could go into shock.
I think most people. That sounds scary, but most people would not keep theirs in for more than 5 days. So
yeah, and actually, I've heard of people who have had it stuck, and they just that's an issue.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
if you're ever in that situation, like go to a doctor or tell someone so that they can take it out, so you don't go into TSS and you don't die.
Yeah, because that's dangerous.
Very
but
dangerous.
I would say if you're first starting out, I would honestly recommend a pad, because I feel like pads are easier to put in. But the first time I used a pad, I put the sticky side on top. I'm so stupid.
I
amaze myself with my stupidity sometimes.
It's okay. Actually, it's confusing, especially if like you know.
You gave me a pad actually.
I did. I got mine like a week before she did or something. Very close. And we were like in the lunch, and she like runs out of the store, and she's like, "Oh my god, I think I had my period." Yeah. And I'm like, "Take the pad, take the pad, take the pad." Literally. And she's like, "No, it's okay. It's not a lot. I don't need it." And I'm like, "Just put it on." And then the next day, she's like, "No, I don't have my period." And then the day after that, she's like, "Wait, I do have my period."
Yeah, it was confusing. Yeah. But thank you for providing me with.
And any girls out there, will also talk about this in the second half. But if someone needs a pad, give it to them. Whether you hate them or love them, they need a pad. They're on their period. It doesn't matter what personal vengeance you have.
Exactly. If you have extras, donate them to people around you.
Okay, time for our stories.
All right.
Our period stories.
All right. So, talk about.
Do you want? Mine's more boring, so I'll go first.
Sure.
Her story is jam-packed, but I started the day before school.
That's fun.
It was awful. I remember waking up in the morning. I looked at my underwear and I said, "What is that?" I was like, I have really bad eyesight. I'm legally blind. So if I don't have if I don't have contacts or glasses, I'd be considered legally blind. But I have terrible eyesight. So I was like, "What is that?" And so I run and put on my glasses, and I see it, and I'm like, whoa. And I start, like, freaking out, hyperventilating.
Yeah, like, the world is gonna end.
And my mom talked to me about them, too. I'm very lucky to have a mother who's open about this, because I know a lot of people don't, but I was still scared, which is weird, because I had supportive mom, and it was just
yeah, odd. I think everyone is.
And then I, like, run downstairs, and I'm like, Mom, there's blood on my underwear. And I'm, like, freaking out and dying. And my mom's like, it's okay, just stick it on there and go on your merry way. And I think on my first couple months of, like, I had a normal cycle. It lasted, like, 2-3 days. And then it sort of, like, expanded to lasting, like, 4 or 5 days. Because that can happen, especially in your first few months. It's not regular.
Right.
But I was so paranoid that I would leak. I would change my pad every 2 hours. I didn't even have that heavy of a flow. And I didn't know what a heavy flow looked like until I got older. So I would have, like, a tiny little streak, and I would think I was bleeding myself out.
Oh, my God.
Because I just didn't know. And then one time I was like, Mom, it's so much blood. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And then I'm like, I was like, it looks like this. And she's like, that's nothing. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of blood, if you have a heavy flow, it like it saturates the entire thing, and there's still more.
Yeah.
Like,
for me, I got, like, a streak, and I was like, so much
oh, the heavy flow. I can't believe you didn't tell me when you got your period. I was so offended.
I don't know. I was just embarrassed, which we'll also talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about that in the second half.
Yeah.
But, so, is your period, would you say, like, relatively, like, normal?
It is normal.
What about period cramps, though? Like, do you get those?
I do get
what are those,
terrible
like?
period cramps. They're awful for the first, second, and sometimes the third day. And, no, not the first, second, and third day. The day before. And then the first and second day.
Oh.
Not the third day, wonderful. I barely get them. But the day before, I know I'm getting my period the next day, because it's the worst cramping.
What? But, like, how do you know that you're going to get your period besides the cramping? You know?
So, there's several ways to, like, figure that out. And one of them is, like, you know, keeping track of it on a tracker.
Oh, right.
For me, I'm not, I just don't. It's too much work. But
yeah, mine just happens, and I'm like, okay.
For me, there's, like, this certain feeling, like, a couple days before. And it's, like, this, like, it feels like this, like, weird, it's not a stomach ache, but it's like a...
Is it like a burning or
not
throbbing?
Necessarily. It's just like it feels empty, honestly.
Oh, okay.
But then during my actual period, I would best describe the pain as someone getting, like, a burning spoon with, like, razor edges and, like, scooping you out.
Oh my
I feel like I'm being pitted like a pumpkin.
That is not fun.
And it feels like something's, like, rubbing against the sides and, like, scraping it off. And it's weird because my mom never had any cramping, but I have very bad cramping.
It just depends on person to person. Like, I don't really have cramping at all. But, also, I think it makes you emotional too when you're on your period.
I feel like I just get annoyed very easily.
No, I get so mad, and then I'll be, like, depressed like a second later. I'll be like, I hate everyone.
Yeah, and my period's been pretty normal ever since. What about you, Celine? I know
my period is not normal. But okay, so I got mine like a week, 2 weeks after Hana, I would say, like 3 days after my 13th birthday. So we were in, like, literacy class, and I think, right? And I, like, went to the bathroom, and there was, like, the tiniest thing of blood. Like, I was like, is this from my finger, or is this, like... But I was like, maybe, just in case I don't want to leak through, and I was terrified of leaking through. And I had, like, a class after that, or lunch, I don't remember.
Yeah, and I just, like, take it.
And you're like, take this, and you shoved it in my hand, and you're like, use it. You're like, use it. So I put it on the wrong side up. That was not comfortable. Sticky side goes down.
Happening because I was outside the stall, right?
Oh,
and she was just
and I was like screaming at you. I was like, I was panicking. So then I think, didn't we like, yeah, and then the next day I didn't have like anything at all.
So you're like, no, it was a false alarm.
So I was like, no, it was like my finger.
And I'm like, there's no way that was a false alarm.
Because there was nothing on the pad, even though I put the wrong side up. But there was like no blood on the pad, so I'm like, false alarm. It was like my finger bleeding, right? And then like the day after that, there was more blood, and I was like, okay. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, my first period lasted like either a week or a week and a half. Yeah. And it was pretty normal. Like, it wasn't super heavy. It wasn't, I think I used like regular pads the whole time. Yeah. And it was pretty normal. And then after that, this was like 2 years ago, so I'm forgetting some things. But I think it was like after that I had my period, like it came sooner, like 2 weeks instead of a month, and I had it for 2 weeks instead of like 1 week, which is like a long time. And it was starting to get heavier, and then near like Christmas break I had it for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. And so that's very irregular. And I remember she went to a doctor and I was freaking out.
Oh my god, that was hilarious. Okay, wait. So it was at the end of, I'll talk about that in a sec. So at the end of those 3 weeks, it was so heavy. Like I was using overnight pads, which are like the thick ones that last you forever. And I had to change the overnight pads like every 1 or 2 hours. And they were really thick, but it was really heavy. So then I went to the doctor, and Hannah was freaking out because she's like, "You're gonna be infertile." And
here's the thing. Whenever something happens, sometimes I freak out.
Yeah, it was kind of funny though.
And I was like,
I was like, wait, hold up, should I be scared?
No, I was like Googling things, and I probably should not have freaked Celine out because I was freaking out.
It's okay.
Being the friend that I am, I'm that type of person.
Yes, she is. She's a good friend, you know. Sorry
about that. Looking back, I realized I definitely was being dramatic.
I don't know. I mean, you were concerned.
Yeah.
And I wasn't concerned, but then I was like, hold on. But then I went there and she's like, oh, it's fine, it's normal. Like, it's only weird if it happens after like your 3rd year, if it's irregular or something. Yeah. Like, okay.
And then I was like celebrating.
And then I was like, all right. And I was like, don't worry, I'm not infertile. And we were like, that was an interesting day. And then in like January and like February, I think that's when it started. That's when it got weird. Like, it started not coming for like 2 months.
Yeah.
And then it would come, or it would like come for like a day and then go away. And I did have it for a really long period of time, and then it like went away for like 2 months, and it was really weird. Like, I would have a lot of spotting like randomly, and then it would be heavy and then super light like an hour later, or there would be blood and then like 2 seconds later there would be none.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
And so it's just it's scary for a lot of people, which is understandable, but you know, a lot of people have diseases when it comes to periods.
Yeah. And I don't know what's like, I still it's
but then we found out you had an iron.
Oh yeah, so I do have like an iron deficiency, so I didn't know that. So then I started taking iron, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be totally fine after I take the iron.
Yeah, because iron causes like you not to have as much blood, right?
Yeah. I think I probably got an iron deficiency because it was really, really heavy in like December.
Yeah, because you know when you're losing that much blood, since
you're
you
losing
had such
iron
a heavy flow,
too.
Yeah, and so we were like Googling like what is this, and then we were like, iron is the solution. This makes so much sense.
So I started taking like iron supplements, like 2 a day, and they made me feel a lot better. Like, they made me feel less tired, and like, but they didn't help my period. Like, I still like, I think I got it the last time I got my period was like last month, and I had it at the beginning of the month, and then I got it at the end, and I'm supposed to have it now, and I don't. It's weird.
So yeah,
I mean, it could just be like my doctor said. She said like it could just happen. Like, a lot of women have irregular periods, and after like 2 or 3 years, it should regular itself out. But you know, we'll see.
Yeah. And let's talk about some diseases, because you know, there's I think a lot of people like they have symptoms with their periods, and they just don't know how to deal with it. But it's so much more common than you think, right?
Yeah, let's talk about first of all, between 14 and 25% of women, according to NICHD, experience irregular periods between their first period and menopause. So like any time within their period.
By the way, menopause is basically like the time when your body
of your period.
Yeah, it's like when you're like 50, your period, you stop getting your period, and you get like hot flashes, and it basically means that you can't get pregnant anymore.
Yeah. And there are a lot of common conditions that could be related to like irregular periods. Like, first of all, I'm going to talk about like endometriosis. One of the main things about endometriosis is like a lot of pain. Like, people who are in it have really, really bad pain. Like, not normal pain, because it is normal to have some level of pain, but this is like pain where you can't even move or like do anything. Did I just click on something? Okay, just ignore me.
but endometriosis, it sounds like a really complex science name, but it's super common.
It is. It affects around 10% of women globally, actually.
That's 1 in 10 people. That's crazy.
And actually endometriosis, I forget the exact number, but I know that a lot of people with this condition are like infertile, so it's really sad.
Yeah.
But
there is hope. I heard there's like hormone treatments.
Oh yeah, there's hormone treatment. There's medication. Some people actually, you know Halsey, who's like the singer.
Halsey.
She had endometriosis. I think she had a miscarriage, but she got surgery for it, I think. So surgery is an option too.
And I think she's has a child now, right? Or she's pregnant.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you're right, which is really
one of
good.
the two.
That's good. And then PCOS is another one. The symptoms are like excessive hair growth, like hair growth on your face or other areas, weight gain, acne, abnormal menstruation, like missed ones or super heavy. It affects about 6 to 12% of women, and it's actually one of the most common causes of infertility.
Yeah.
So if you have any of these symptoms that I'm talking about, see a doctor, and there are a lot of treatments like medications, as we talked about. Birth control could be one. And then amenorrhea, there are 2 different kinds of amenorrhea. There's primary amenorrhea. I hope I'm pronouncing this right.
Amenorrhea? I think it's
amenorrhea, yeah. And secondary amenorrhea. So primary amenorrhea is when someone never gets their period in their entire life.
Okay.
And that affects less than 0.1% of the population.
So that's very unlikely.
Very rare. I have met someone who has amenorrhea, though.
Really?
Yeah, I think they were on my soccer team, but yeah, it does happen. And then secondary amenorrhea is when you have your period, but then it like stops coming for like 4 months or something, or a really long period of time. So if your period hasn't come by the age of 15, it's recommended to see a doctor.
Yeah.
Wait, actually, I have a list of things you should see the doctor for.
Wait, let's talk about PMS real fast.
Oh yeah, PMS.
So PMS is just basically like,
it's like a ton of symptoms that come like before your period, or like it's called Pre-Menstrual Syndrome, I think. Yeah.
A lot of people have it. I think almost everyone has it, and it's not like a disease or anything. It's more like
it's like getting really irritated and emotional, and like cramps and pain and abdominal pain,
like bloating, fatigue, you know, all that type of stuff, and that just happens during your period.
Yeah.
But if you have like extra severe PMS, then that could be a sign to go see a doctor.
Yeah, that could be a sign of like endometriosis or something. Yeah. So if you have had your period for like more than 2 years and it still doesn't come regularly, about every like 4 to 5 weeks or a month, then see a doctor. Or if you have bleeding between periods, which is like spotting, and maybe they'll tell you it's fine, like they said that to me, but it never hurts to see a doctor, you know. And
also, no one knows your body better than you, so if you think something's definitely wrong and someone's telling you aren't, I suggest seeing another doctor.
Yeah. And if you have really severe cramps that don't get better, even if you take like medications like ibuprofen or pain meds, then see a doctor. And if you have super heavy bleeding that bleeds through a pad or tampon faster than 1 hour, or if you have periods that last more than around a week, severe PMS that gets in the way of everyday activities, or are 15 and haven't started your period. So if you can relate to any of those, or if you are experiencing any of those, definitely I would recommend seeing a doctor. So
yeah, for sure. Is that it for our first half?
I think it is. And your phone's about to die, so we really want to make the second half right now. All right. So thank you.
In the second half, we'll be talking more about like how people are disproportionately affected by like having their period. Just so many different period things. So stay tuned.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Welcome back from the break.
Okay, don't, please, no. I'm too tired for this, okay?
Okay.
You sound like a chipmunk. Like, what are you trying to accomplish there? Alright, anyways. Second half, we were talking about, like, access to resources, what pads are like natural and which ones to avoid.
Let's talk about that first. Okay, let's talk about like good period pads and like
so
why.
Good period pad brands I like. My favorite is probably like Cora. Yeah, I like Cora, and I think a lot of the period pad brands, like they like sponsor women in other countries, so they give them materials.
Yeah,
like, in third world countries.
I think I use the other one.
Oh, what was it, like 7?
1 for 1.
1 for 1.
One for
yeah,
one.
yeah. That's a good one. And then there's also Lola, and there's a brand called L. It's just L with a dot, and I actually really like it. Real, I like. Nature Care, I like.
And half of these donate to like women in poverty.
Yeah,
like, they give pads.
And
to
they're
them.
also natural, which so I think my mom actually has a website called Humble Organics. If you want to check it out,
Yeah, Humble Organics. We'll link it.
Yes.
But
so it talks a lot about like how some pads are just have like bad chemicals. Like some pads have volatile compounds and phthalates that can be absorbed into your body through the use of period pads, and these can disrupt the endocrine, hurt the heart and reproductive system. It can even lead to cancer and diabetes and like infertility.
Yeah.
So it's really, and it's just bad for your health in general. And I think a lot of people don't even know about this. I didn't even know about this, but in a study, 11 sanitary brands were tested, and all of them contain 2 types of phthalates, and phthalates are like really bad for you.
Yeah.
So one of the big brands to avoid is Always. I actually had to use them.
I used to use Always.
I had to use them once because they were the only overnight pads I've used, and like I don't see a huge difference between like the natural ones, like the comfort level,
Yeah,
the natural ones and the Always ones. So I would definitely say like choose natural over like Always or any like big brand companies. Like I feel like that don't say they're natural, like stuff like Always that.
Yeah, definitely, because it can like cause you to have like birth defects, cancer, ovarian cancer, like diabetes,
a lot of health issues like now and in the future.
Yeah.
And definitely do research and look at the ingredients, and like before you buy a brand, like look up what's in it, and there are probably studies and people probably like have tested them or like talked about them. So
and also like tampons especially, like there's things called like scented pads and tampons which have so much chemicals
and
in
they
them.
smell so disgusting. I went to the gynecologist and the lady gave me a scented pad, and I didn't even realize it was scented, and then I was like, what is that terrible smell?
Yeah.
So
don't use
stay away from the scented ones or like the Always ones, and definitely I would say Cora is my favorite, but I also like Lola, L,
I like
Royale,
1 for 1.
Natural Co. 1 for 1 is great too. Any of those. They all have like liners, regular pads, thick pads, overnight pads, all right.
So now we're on to the next topic, which is period poverty.
So a lot of people don't have access to like sanitary pads and materials that they need that a lot of other people have.
Yeah, and period poverty can also be described as like having to miss out on certain activities because you're on your period. And according to Healthline.com, 1 in 4 women experience some type of period poverty throughout their years of menstruation.
Yeah. And it's also, I feel like, not having the correct education about it.
Yes,
or like
definitely.
Having taboos around it, or not being taught about it, or being taught that it's like a bad thing.
Yeah.
And actually, up to 500 million women and girls are living in poverty where they don't have access to proper sanitation. So that includes pads, tampons, anything that you need to contain your period, contain the flow so you don't leak.
That could also be like sinks. For example, the average woman spends nearly 7 years of their life menstruating, like if you were to total it up.
Oh, total the months up?
Yeah.
Wow.
But despite this, 25 in the U.S., 25 million women live in poverty, but food stamps won't cover the menstrual products.
Really?
And this is not just in the U.S., it's actually worse globally. For example, just 12% of women in India have access to sanitary products.
Oh my god.
So 88% 88% of women don't have access.
Wow, I can't even imagine that, because I think we live in a country where not everyone, but like at least like both of us have access to all these things, and we don't even think twice about it.
Yeah,
but I think it's like, when you think about it, so many people don't have this, and it's like it's a need for a woman. Like it's just something that they can't control. They need this stuff.
Yeah, and because they can't access it, they used like newspapers, toilet paper, socks, plastic bags.
And plastic bags would be really bad, like because plastic is not.
And it
good
has
for
like
you.
BPA too.
Yeah.
And in addition to all of that, 1.25 billion females worldwide don't have access to a safe and private toilet. And 526 females worldwide don't have access to a toilet at all.
Oh, that's so sad. I mean, that would be really hard if you're on your period and you
Definitely.
Because you want to be in private and you want to, like, be on your own when you're, like, bleeding.
And just to put that in perspective, just imagine an entire middle school without a toilet. Like, that many kids.
Oh, my god.
Without one toilet.
Yeah. And it's not just a woman's issue. Like, globally, 2.3 billion people live without basic sanitation services.
Yeah.
And in developing countries, only 27% of people have adequate hand-washing facilities at home. And this is from UNICEF, by the way.
Yeah. Actually, we'll link all of our sources in the bio in case you want to check them out, because you should, definitely.
And this makes it so much harder, not only for everyone, but especially women and young girls, to manage their periods safely, where they feel comfortable and they have enough privacy and they're containing the flow and not leaking and stuff like that.
And that's rare nowadays, to have someone who is very comfortable with their period.
Yeah.
Also, on top of that, the cost of menstrual products is absolutely insane. For example, there's this thing called the pink tax, which is basically where anything marketed towards women is more pricey. For example, men's, I don't know where the statistic is, but the men's like products are 7% less than women's products on average.
Yeah, no, I've heard of that. Like, things in different colors like cost differently, even if they're the same thing, like targeted to different genders. Like, a pink thing costs more than like a blue thing, even though colors don't even define genders.
And even though these products are essential, like, they're essential things, they still cost more.
Yeah.
And also, I think actually it's not considered essential, which means that they're not covered by food stamps, like we talked about.
I think it is
and they're
essential.
not, and they still card taxed, right?
Yeah.
Because for like essential items, there's this thing that the government did during like a health crisis where they do tax exempt, which means they don't charge tax, but they still charge tax on these things.
Really, that's so messed up. I mean, it's like a basic need of all women, I feel like.
Yeah.
To live their life. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's not like exactly like food and water, which are like absolute, like you're gonna die if you don't get them. But this is like a basic need to live a comfortable, like, safe, private life, you know? Like,
yeah, and also, you know, even if you, it's not life-threatening, if you don't have proper sanitation and you can't afford it, it can cause health risks, including TSS, which is like the shock syndrome we talked about.
Right.
They're more likely to have reproductive issues and urinary tract infections.
Yeah, and I think it would lead to like a lower performance in like school and like less concentration because you're worried about it and you don't have the correct like sanitation, so you're not comfortable if you're like bleeding through if you don't.
And also in like this next topic I'm about to talk about real fast, we'll talk about like how it affects your everyday life in school.
Yeah.
Yeah. On to the next topic about taboo and stigma surrounding periods.
Yes.
So, from a young age, I think like periods are taught to be something to hide.
Yeah, they're taught to be something that you should be embarrassed or ashamed of. Like, don't tell the boys. Like, we actually had a code at our school. Like, if we needed a pad, you would say like, I need a headband. And as much as they were trying to support the girls, and I get that, and it's just our society, it's not their fault. It's like, I don't think we should need to say that. We should be able to call it a pad in front of people, you know?
Yeah,
you shouldn't be embarrassed that you have to have a code word for it, you know?
Yeah, and they're trying to protect us, but it shouldn't be something that we have to be protected from. Just like rape, just like harassment. You know, society tries to protect us by making us hide it, but it's not something we should ever have to hide.
Yeah.
And also, I'm wearing a red shirt for period day.
Period day.
Anyway.
I am wearing pink. Pink is close to red. Good enough.
Anyway. Many schools across the country and other countries don't even teach girls about this, regardless of like anything. Leaving them ashamed, alone, and confused. Young girls who do not receive an education about periods are actually more likely to enter child marriages.
Really?
And malnourishment, subject to domestic violence, and pregnancy complications.
Wow.
And also, even if they do teach it at schools, boys and girls are separated. And
like at our school we had the girls had this talk in PE and the boys were over there in the gym and the girls were in the dressing rooms or something.
Yeah, and boys talked about like
talk
their
separately
stuff.
And it's like it's a part of life. Even if it doesn't affect boys, it affects the people around them. It affects their mom, right? Their sisters, their best friends,
their future girlfriends and wives.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they're ever in a situation where they do like have an emergency with their like sisters and brothers, or not brothers, sisters and like moms and stuff, they should learn how to deal with it. And also, I think so many girls get bullied by boys by this. So if they're more educated about that, that would help so much. I think with like the stigma surrounding it.
Just knowing about it, just boys knowing about it, I think can help girls feel like they don't need to hide it. Because if we're hiding it by not telling boys, right? We're hiding it from an entire gender of people, an entire group of people. So if we stop hiding it, it's like everyone knows it's just a natural thing, and maybe boys can't relate to it, or maybe they're not going through it, but I think they can better support us.
They can respect
and they can respect it, and they know it's a part of life. I think it's important that they know, like, this happens, it's like, it's natural, they know how to deal with it, they know what it is, so they can better support, like, women and girls.
If they learn about this, like, it also works towards ruining the stigma, or like deleting, or like taking, what is it called? Like, exterminating.
Disintegrating. No, that doesn't work.
Just basically eliminating that stigma from society that is something to be ashamed of. And it will help so many girls feel more confident and boys be able to help the people that they love.
Yeah. And as bad as it is, like, with the stigma in, like, the U.S., it's even worse in other countries.
So bad. Actually, my mom would tell me stories. She used to live in India. She immigrated here when she was a teenager. But people would like lock girls in rooms and stuff because they're like unholy. Actually, in Nepal, for example, menstruating women are seen by like impure by their community.
Really?
And they were banished to huts during their cycle.
Goodness.
Well, menstrual huts are illegal. Families still do them. And these misconceptions are deeply rooted all across Asia and in third world countries, just in general. Even the organization Womena conducted a study in Uganda that said most girls skipped school while on their period to avoid being teased by classmates.
Oh, that's so sad. Yeah, not only is there teasing and taunting and just miseducation about it, I think there's also like the aspects of like having to like be seen as impure or having it seem wrong, even though it's a natural part of life that most women go through.
Yeah, and especially I feel like people are like, okay, well, we have hair, that's normal. We have skin, that's normal. We talk, that's normal. Periods happen without us having any will. So why is that considered weird?
It's a part of life, exactly. It's just a natural thing that happens.
And it makes no sense how people like randomly think certain things are stigma and certain things are bad and certain things are great, even though they all happen against our will and they're all natural processes.
And there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's part of life, just like everything else is. You know?
And I think it's just so deeply rooted in our society in general.
Yeah, but we can change that, all of us. So I think one of the big things is just spread the word, like talk about it. Don't be afraid to like talk about it. Don't be afraid of the stigma around it. Don't be afraid that people will think like you'll be embarrassed.
Because if you aren't ashamed, you're sort of normalizing it, which will break the stigmas around it.
Yeah, like share stories, tell your story, listen to other people's stories. Yeah. Share other people's stories about it.
Repost the posts that you hear about posts.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And talking about it, just normalizing these things in our society that have been seen as either taboo or wrong or like something to be embarrassed of. Yeah, just taking the stigma. The first step to, I think, taking the stigmas away is to normalize something.
Yes,
and
definitely.
to make it a natural part of life, like it is, like it should be. And to all the boys, just don't make girls feel ashamed or embarrassed about their periods. Like,
and also not even boys, like older women, a lot of the time they also tell you that periods are something you should be ashamed of.
Yeah.
And so I think it's super important for like boys and older women
or anyone. Anyone, yeah. Just never make someone feel ashamed. Support them. Like, if you have a pad with you, give them a pad. If you don't, like, tell them, like, oh, it's all good. This is natural. This is
like, whether you hate them or love them, they're on your period, and they can't help that. Yeah. And you're being a good person. Like, even if they're their worst enemy, it's girl code. You gotta help them out.
Exactly. And maybe if a random boy is carrying a pad, I mean, just
honestly,
give it
boys,
to a girl. Who knows?
If you carry pads around school and a girl's on her period and she needs a pad, literally, you'll get all the ladies. For me, honestly, I think it's very admirable. Like, if a boy is like open about periods and like low-key a feminist. Like, they support women, and they're respectful above all. Yeah. I think that's very admirable.
And I think a misconception about feminism is that girls matter more than boys, which is not true. Feminism is just being equal.
It's like Black Lives Matter. Like, just because feminine is in the name doesn't mean it's centered around girls being better. Just because Black Lives Matter is in the name, it's not about black people being raised to a high level. It's about
all of us having the same opportunities, and all of us living the lives that we should live, and all of us having all those things in our lives that we have as a basic need of a human being, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So, I would honestly, I feel like advocating for pads and tampons to be like either free or reduce the cost.
Yeah, that's also another big thing you can do.
And there's so many foundations that help with that, or like even just buying the period pads that help sponsor women in other countries, like
definitely.
1-in-1, Cora, I think.
1-for-1.
Sorry, Cora.
I think Lola does it too.
Possibly, and just look them up.
You can Google them, and if you like tampons, I'm sure there's plenty of ones.
And as we talked about, like carry around pads if someone needs an extra, there you go. Even if you don't like them, they're experiencing the same thing you probably have. So and then use I think that's it, right? Like, yeah. All right. So,
and if you want to, like, you could do school projects based around it, like, just spread the word.
Yeah. And, like, if you want to, like, in the comments under, like, if you're listening to this on Anchor, or, like, can you comment on, like, Anchor?
I don't think so, but on YouTube you can. Or all of our socials will be linked in the bio, so if you want to comment on it, check out that.
And DM us about it.
Yeah, definitely. And if you want us to talk about something, let us know. All of our sources we used to make this episode will be linked in the bio.
I'm glad we made this episode because I think it's important.
It's just so important.
For so many reasons. Like, it has a lot of depth to it. Like, the part about embarrassment, and the part about poverty, and the part about just kids and girls and pads and...
I just hope anyone who listens to that who is scared and, like, embarrassed, I hope they got something out of it.
Guess what? Even if you leak through, that's fine. Yeah. Like, even if you forget a pad once in your life, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And if someone makes fun of you, that's their problem. It's not yours.
They were never a good fault in their personality. They were never a good friend in the first place. So thank you for listening.
Yes.
Follow us on
I hope you learned something today.
Yeah. And do you have any last ending remarks for the world?
Listen to our podcast.
Yes.
And also, never be judgmental, because you don't know what someone's going through. And someone always has it worse than you, and someone always has it better than you.
There was a quote that I like.
Stay grounded.
There was a quote that I like. It was like, saying you don't have a reason to be sad because other people have it worse is like saying you don't have a reason to be happy because other people have it better. And so I think what that's saying is you can have all your emotions are invalid, or no,
all your emotions are
valid. I'm sorry. But at the same time, be grateful, because gratitude does help. So,
yeah. And also being, like, aware about, like, people's struggles can really help you
and
gain
being
perspective.
aware of your own struggles, you know?
Yeah.
So
be aware.
Awareness. All right. Bye. See you next